A NASA probe can dive toward the sun, take a 2,500-degree hit on its shield, and still keep its instruments colder than Antarctica. Then on the moon, one step out of sunlight can drop you into a killer cold. So, why is space so cold when the sun is so hot? Let's get into it. Chapter 1, the headline that breaks your brain. One of the weirdest space headlines in recent years sounded fake the first time people heard it. A spacecraft got closer to the sun than anything humanity had ever built, pushed deep into the corona, and still didn't get cooked all the way through. The outside of the shield got blasted with insane heat, while the instrument sitting behind it stayed freezing cold. That sounds impossible until you realize most of us have been thinking about the sun the wrong way our whole lives. We imagine it like a campfire. You stand near it, you feel heat, so anything near a giant star should just be roasting all the time, right? That feels obvious. It feels common sense. It also turns out to be incomplete in a really important way. The sun is absurdly hot. Its core is around 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. Its visible surface is roughly 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Even stranger, the corona above that surface can shoot back up into the millions. So yeah, the furnace itself is not the issue. The sun is doing its part. It is throwing out ridiculous amounts of energy every second. The real question is what happens to that energy after it leaves. And this is where space starts feeling less like a place and more like a trap for your intuition. Because if you go just a few hundred miles above Earth into what people casually call space, the background temperature is close to minus 455 degrees Fahrenheit, not chilly, not winter, not mountaintop cold, basically the edge of absolute zero. So how can both things be true at once? How can the solar system be ruled by a giant nuclear inferno while the stuff around it stays almost unimaginably cold? The answer is not that the sun is weak, it is that empty space is weird in a way your body was never designed to understand. Chapter 2, temperature is not heat. Before anything else, we have to fix one sneaky misunderstanding because this whole mystery falls apart the second you separate two words people treat like they mean the same thing. Heat and temperature are related, but they are not identical. Temperature is about particle motion. It tells you how much the particles in something are moving, vibrating, bouncing around. Hot means fast motion, cold means slower motion. Push that idea all the way down to the limit and you get absolute zero, the point where particle motion reaches its lowest possible state. That sits at about minus 459 degrees Fahrenheit. Now here is the key line. Temperature belongs to matter, not to nothing. Matter. That means if you do not have particles, you do not really have temperature in the way your brain wants to imagine it. You cannot talk about empty nothingness the same way you talk about boiling water or frozen metal. And deep space comes shockingly close to being that nothing. In the vast voids between stars and galaxies, you can get roughly one atom in a cubic meter of space. Think about that. One atom in a space the size of a washing machine. Down here on Earth, that same cubic meter of air contains around 25 quintillion molecules. That is such a stupidly huge difference that your normal instincts stop being useful. Earth is crowded. Space is basically abandoned. So when people ask why space is cold, the better way to say it is this. Why does a place with almost no particles in it not stay warm just because a nearby star is blasting out energy? And once you say it that way, the whole thing starts snapping into focus. Chapter 3, the three ways. Heat moves. Heat only knows a few ways to get around. The first is conduction, that is direct contact, touch a hot pan, and the energy moves from the metal into your hand. Particle bumps into particle, then into the next one, then into the next one. It is simple, brutal, and immediate. But conduction needs stuff touching other stuff. In space, most things are not touching, so that option is gone. The second is convection. That is when a fluid moves heat around, warm air rises, cool air sinks, hot water swirls in a pot. This is how atmospheres and oceans spread energy around a planet. But convection needs gas or liquid. A medium, a carrier, space does not really give you one. So that option is gone too. That leaves radiation. Radiation is the one method that does not need matter in between. Energy can travel as electromagnetic waves, light, infrared, ultraviolet. All of that can cross a vacuum just fine. This is how sunlight makes it from the sun to Earth across about 93 million miles. And this is the part most people never get taught clearly enough. Radiation can move through empty space. It does not automatically heat empty space. That is the whole trick. The sunlight is real, the energy is real, it crosses the vacuum with no problem, but the vacuum itself is not some sponge sitting there soaking up warmth. The energy keeps going until it hits actual matter, a planet, a moon, a spaceship, dust, you. Once that happens, atoms and molecules can absorb the radiation and start heating up. So the sun is not failing to send heat. Space is failing to provide anything for that energy to really settle into. That is such a cold sentence. Literally, the universe is full of energy flying around, but huge parts of it have almost nothing there to catch it. Chapter 4, Why Sunlight Heats You, Not the Void. Now the paradox gets fun. If space itself is not sitting there warm, then why can astronauts overheat? Why do spacecraft need thermal control? Why does a suit need to worry about both freezing and cooking you at the same time? Because the moment sunlight hits matter, the story changes. The vacuum is not what gets hot. The object does. That means space is not one temperature. It is more like a brutal lighting problem. What matters is whether radiation is hitting you, how much is hitting you, what your surface is made of, whether you can dump that energy away fast enough, and whether anything is helping even things out. On Earth, our atmosphere does a massive amount of behind-the-scenes work to soften all of this. It absorbs, spreads, and holds heat. It stops the world from turning into a giant thermal mood swing. Every few hours, take that atmosphere away and everything becomes way more dramatic. An object sitting in direct sunlight above Earth's atmosphere can heat to around 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Move that same object into shadow and it can plunge to about minus 250, not because the laws of physics broke, because there is no air there to smooth the difference out. No wind, no warm blanket, no gentle handoff from bright side to dark side. So when people say space is cold, that is true in the big background sense. But if you personally were hanging out there, the more accurate answer would be worse. Space can burn you and freeze you, sometimes almost at the same time, depending on where the light is landing. And if that sounds rude, wait until you look at the moon. Chapter 5, The Shadow Problem. Nobody forgets. The moon is one of the cleanest examples because it does not hide the truth behind weather. In direct sunlight on the lunar surface, especially near the equator, temperatures can climb to around 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Then you step into the shadow of a crater, and suddenly you are looking at minus 290. Same neighborhood, same surface, same world. The difference is basically a patch of sunlight versus no sunlight. That should mess with your brain a little. On Earth, a shadow feels cooler, sure, but it does not feel like you teleported to another planet. That is because Earth keeps moving heat around, air circulates, ground releases stored warmth, water buffers extremes. Our entire environment is constantly doing damage control for us. The moon does not care. The moon does not have customer service, and the International Space Station deals with a version of this non-stop. It circles Earth roughly every 90 minutes, which means it keeps moving into sunlight and then back into darkness over and over again. Its exterior can swing from around plus 250 degrees Fahrenheit to around minus 250 in a single orbit. Engineers do not design for a comfortable average. They design for a machine getting slapped back and forth between two thermal extremes forever. This is also why future moon bases are not just going to be about rockets and cool helmets. They are going to be about survival through thermal management, walls, coatings, radiators, buried habitats, power systems, shadow zones, all of it. If we ever put permanent crews there, one of the biggest enemies will not be some dramatic asteroid strike. It will be the sheer disrespect of unfiltered sunlight and absolute shade sitting right next to each other. So then comes the next obvious question. If even the moon is this intense, what happens near the sun itself? Chapter 6, The Spacecraft That Flew Into Fire. This is where Parker's solar probe turns the whole video into a cheat code for understanding the problem. When it made one of its close approaches, it flew within about 6.5 million miles of the sun's surface, deep inside the corona. That is not just close in a casual sense, that is get your life together close. At that distance, the spacecraft's heat shield faced temperatures around 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt steel, and yet the instruments behind that shield sat around minus 238 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the kind of fact that sounds made up by someone trying to win an argument online, but it makes perfect sense once you stop thinking of space like a hot room and start thinking of it like a beam problem. The shield got hammered because radiation hit it directly. The protected hardware behind it did not, so it stayed cold. Move just a few feet into shadow and the thermal reality changes fast. That is not a bug in the mission. That is the mission proving the rule. Near the sun, the danger is not that the vacuum turns into an oven. The danger is direct exposure to insane radiation. Block it well, reflect it, dump the absorbed heat efficiently, and you can survive way closer than your instincts would ever allow. That one spacecraft quietly killed the campfire version of the sun. It showed that closeness to a star is not the only thing that matters. Exposure matters, materials matter, geometry matters, shadow matters. A lot, and now the question widens again. If the vacuum does not really hold heat the way we imagine, then what temperature does the universe itself settle into when nothing major is lighting it up? This is where it gets eerie. Chapter 7, the universe has a background setting. Even though space is mostly empty, it is not perfectly empty. There is a faint glow everywhere in every direction left over from the early universe. It is called the cosmic microwave background, and it is basically the cooled down afterglow of the Big Bang. This is wild for two reasons. First, it means the universe still has a memory of its birth. Second, that memory is cold, really cold. Today, that background sits at about 2.7 Kelvin, which is around minus 455 degrees Fahrenheit, only a few degrees above absolute zero. That makes it the natural thermal baseline of the universe. Not zero, not exactly the lowest allowed by physics, but so close that it feels almost personal, like the cosmos itself defaulted to barely above nothing, and it is still cooling. The universe expands, the radiation stretches, and the temperature keeps dropping over immense timescales. So, in a very literal sense, the universe is colder now than it used to be, and future space will be colder still. Then, just to make things even stranger, there are places that beat even that background. The Boomerang Nebula is one of the coldest known natural regions, around 2 degrees above absolute zero, because gas there is expanding so fast that it chills itself below the normal cosmic background. So yes, stars are hot, accretion disks are hot, supernovae are hot, some worlds are hot, but those are local outbursts, islands, flares, pockets. The larger stage they sit inside is overwhelmingly cold. That is the real cosmic image. Not a uniformly warm universe with a few chilly corners. Almost the opposite. A dark, freezing vastness with scattered zones of violence, light, and temporary warmth. And if you want one last planetary example that completely destroys the closer means hotter logic, Mercury and Venus are waiting for you. Chapter 8. Mercury, Venus, and the atmosphere. Cheat code. Mercury should feel like the easiest case in the world. Closest planet to the sun, therefore hottest planet. Case closed. Except no, not even close. Mercury's daytime surface can hit around 800 degrees Fahrenheit, which sounds about right for a world hugging the sun, but once night falls, its temperature can collapse to around minus 290. That means the nearest planet to the sun can get colder at night than the surface of Mars, even though Mars is way farther out. Why? Because Mercury has almost no atmosphere. So once sunlight is gone, it cannot hold on to the energy very well. The surface radiates its heat away, and the temperature drops hard. There is no thick layer of gas wrapping the planet and evening things out. Now look at Venus. Venus is farther from the sun than Mercury, but it is hotter on average around 900 degrees Fahrenheit because its thick carbon dioxide atmosphere traps heat brutally well. Day, night, equator, not equator, it barely matters compared with Mercury's chaos. Venus holds warmth like it has commitment issues with letting anything go. That comparison matters so much because it reveals the actual game. Distance from the sun matters, sure, but so do atmosphere, material, reflectivity, rotation, circulation, and whether energy gets trapped or dumped. This is why Earth feels almost suspiciously nice by comparison. We are not sitting in a normal part of reality. We are sitting in a finely tuned thermal compromise, enough incoming solar energy to keep the system active, enough atmosphere to spread and retain a useful amount of that energy, not so much trapping that we turn into Venus, not so little that we behave like the moon or Mercury. That balance is not something the universe owes anybody. And once you really get that, Earth starts looking less ordinary and more like a very lucky exception. Chapter 9, why this changes how you see Earth. The warmth you feel on your skin on a normal day can trick you into thinking what warmth is basic, default, common. Like the universe just kind of does that. It does not. Earth works because a whole stack of conditions line up at once. We are the right kind of distance from a star that is stable enough for long stretches of time. We have an atmosphere thick enough to distribute and retain heat without crushing the surface into a furnace. We have oceans that store energy, weather that moves it, a surface that reflects some sunlight and absorbs some, a day-night cycle that does not get too absurd, a magnetic field that helps with protection, basically an entire planet-sized support system. Take away just one or two of those features and the vibe changes fast. No atmosphere and we become the moon with prettier rocks. Too much trapping and we drift toward Venus. Too little and nighttime starts getting savage. Get the stellar input wrong and the whole thing slides out of the comfortable zone. The warmth around you right now is not the default state of the cosmos. It is maintained, buffered, protected, managed by systems we usually ignore because they have always been there. That is why this question hits harder than it seems. It starts as a fun science paradox, then quietly turns into a reminder that habitability is fragile. And it also changes the future because when humans push deeper into space, we are not just taking our rockets with us. We are leaving behind the giant environmental cheat code that has made life easy enough for us to exist. Chapter 10, future space travel is going to be a thermal war. This is where the background science turns into a future problem. Every serious deep space mission, lunar base, Mars habitat, solar power platform, asteroid mining rig, or maybe one day even something as ridiculous as a lunar elevator is going to have to fight the same basic truth. Space is not a nice warm ocean you sail through. It is a vacuum that forces your hardware to manage energy with almost no forgiveness. Too much direct sunlight and surfaces cook. Too much shadow and systems freeze. No atmosphere means there is no easy way to move heat around, and dumping excess heat is its own nightmare because you cannot just turn on a fan in a vacuum and call it a day. You have to radiate that energy away. That means future engineers are not just building vehicles. They are building artificial climates wrapped around tiny human bodies that evolved for one specific planet and absolutely not for this mess. And there is a bigger implication too. The same physics shaping our spacecraft probably shapes alien civilizations as well. If space is this hard for us, it is probably hard in general. Expansion across a star system is not just about propulsion, money, or ambition. It is also about surviving brutal thermal extremes, managing energy in vacuum, and building infrastructure that works where sunlight can be both your best power source and your worst enemy. So maybe the road to becoming a real spacefaring civilization is not just about going farther. Maybe it is about mastering environments where every patch of light and every patch of darkness is trying to kill your systems in a different way. That is why Parker Solar Probe matters beyond the headlines. That is why moon shadow temperatures matter. That is why Mercury and Venus matter. They are all reminders that space is not one simple thing. It is a place where emptiness itself changes the rules, and honestly, that might be the most important mindset shift for the next century of exploration, not thinking of space as a colder version of Earth, but as a place where Earth's safety nets are gone and physics stops being polite. So next time you look up and think the question is why space is so cold when the sun is so hot, go one step further. Ask why warmth anywhere in the universe lasts at all. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more insane stories from outer space.